When I was a prosecutor, I prepared for court a 13-year-old girl who was sexually abused by an elder at her church. The abuse began when she was in kindergarten, continued until the age of 13 when she made an outcry. And in preparing the child for court, I said, look, I know the defense attorney. I know how he'll cross-examine you. He's going to make a big deal that there was an 8-year delay before you shared your experience. I said, I'm going to object vigorously to that line of questioning, but I think the judge is going to let him get away with it. And if the judge allows him to go down that path, I said, on redirect, I'm just going to ask you one question. I'll ask you to tell the jury in your own words why it was so difficult to talk about it. And she looked at me and said, well, Victor, I couldn't talk about it because I'm a Christian. I said, tell me about that. And she said, look, my family is very religious. We go to church every week. We do Bible study every day. We're constantly engaged in prayer. And the only thing I ever heard from the church about sexual contact was that if it's outside of marriage, it's sinful. And she said, when this man touched me, sometimes my body betrayed me, sometimes I had a biological reaction. He was really good at pointing that out and convincing me that if I ever told anyone in my family or in the church, I would be condemned. She grew up in a church where there was no education for parents on how to talk to their children about abuse. There's no education for the children themselves, what to do if, God forbid, you're ever violated. She grew up in a church where there was no such thing as child protection policies that would protect her from this particular predator. She grew up in a church where there was never a sermon, there was never a Bible study, there was never any conversation about abuse. And so she was left with the idea, if it's so unimportant to the church, then somehow I must be the guilty party. I must be the sinful person when this person touches me. She did not know the huge gulf between sinning and being the victim of sin. That is why it's so critical to engage churches, to engage them in education, to engage them in policy development, and to engage them in theological reform. Laura?